Thank you so much for joining. And I'm very inspired to listen what has inspired you today. Maybe starting with Dr. Yad.
Well, what inspires me is that today is my birthday, in fact.
Wow.
Right.
That's amazing. I hope on a very good day.
And what inspires me is that I am getting old. And no, really. And the idea is that what have I done in my life to serve my kids, my grandkids, and the people who come after them? So what inspires me is a commitment to continue the fight for the generations to come. I wouldn't blame our generation for what they have done. Maybe they've done it in a wrong way, but they provided development for the entire world. They provided technology. They provided, better opportunities for living. Although it was on the expense of the environment. Now it is the time to rectify that and leave some hope for the next generation that they will live in dignity, in a developed world, but also in a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment.
First of all, very happy returns of the day.
Thank you.
Stay ever blessed, ever smiling as you are.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And definitely, as long as I know you, I have been, I think, working with you since 2020. And I find Mr. Yad to be really very inspiring, encouraging, and always looking for providing and creating, not just providing, but creating opportunities for young people. So really, today is really a very good day to have you here on your birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And so for you, Mr. Morin, what's your inspiration for the day?
Well, I think inspiration today to keep hope, to keep courage, but also the idea, and we were just talking about it, that we can really begin to have a holistic view of things. And so the connection of science and spirituality, or science and faith, the connection of different communities, and with governments, and the connection of all the different aspects of the environmental crisis, which really come into one under one umbrella. You can't separate climate change from biodiversity loss, from land degradation, and so on. And I suppose I just hope hearts will be touched, sufficient hearts will be touched to really make the change that we need.
When you say hearts to be touched, I want to ask you one little memory of yours where really your heart was touched and you realized that I really need to do something for nature. What was that event or incident or an experience or a moment that made you realize that, no, I need to dedicate my energy for nature?
Well, I can tell you that my heart was touched several times in several moments. A lot of times when you find a very young girl or boy standing in front of the international community at the General Assembly or in intergovernmental meetings and crying out for help us to live. This is when you feel that you need to do something for those young people. When you look at what happens after each catastrophic disaster of hurricanes and typhoons and even droughts hitting Africa, and looking at not only animals but people dying in the deserts because there's no water, there's no food. This is when you believe that it is about time that if you have not already been doing things, you need to speed up and do more.
And what was the thing?
Again, several things, but I decided to give up dairy about 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I did it for health. And it was a few years later, I really understood the cruelty in the dairy industry. Mm. The meat industry, we know very much about. The dairy industry, very, very cruel. Mm. And although I was already given up dairy, but that's when I really felt, our whole planet is crying out and the animals are crying out. And so that was a moment for me. And the other, just in October, the biodiversity conference in Cali, and hearing the experiences of the indigenous people is heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And the way they are the ones who know how to look after the land. They've been caring for the land for millennia and allowing it to flourish, not exploiting it in any way. And yet they're being marginalized, in many cases taken off the land, so the government can manage it for biodiversity. And I thought, well, what do you think? It just doesn't make sense. And so that kind of renewed my commitment, because I know that we're in a spiritual crisis, and this is what we have to heal. We have to heal ourselves, heal our relationships, so that we can have that generosity of spirit to not just listen to the vested interest, but to think about the good of the whole of humanity.
What comes to be very interesting is when you both had different experiences, but they both were connected to suffering.
Yeah.
It was like a child or a young activist suffering and anxious, thinking whether they can live in the future ahead. Maybe they are not able to see one. So there is this suffering of not being able to visualize their reality. And then there is another way of suffering where different species are suffering. And somewhere it is said that if you want to see or understand how Mother Nature feels, just see any other mother. She's just like any other mother. If another mother is crying, so is Mother Nature. So how do you find, like, in a world of such suffering where things are not moving the way it should be or with the pace it should be, how to elevate people from that suffering in what you do and how you do? And so it's not like a interview, it's more like sharing. So what you have done so far and what you have done so far, maybe if you can share something.
Okay, sure. I think being part of a spiritual movement or faith-based organization, our big focus has been helping people to become more resilient within, and helping people to really, through their connection, you can say it's their connection on the human level to the human family, but also through the connection with the higher source, with the divine, and to be able to have the faith and courage to make those choices that make a difference. And I've seen that people have hope when they are making those choices and listening to their conscience, and there's an alignment. So it's not that the thoughts are saying one thing and the heart is saying another, the actions are doing another. There's a lot of discomfort inside. But when there's an alignment, then I've seen how it's possible for the pace of change to be accelerated, because you're not only doing the right thing, but there's a whole, if you like, vibration or consciousness that's coming with it, which gives that extra value and inspiration to others. Because at the moment, the atmosphere in the world is very much one of fear. You know, and so many decisions are based on fear and based on the trauma that people have been through. And so when people begin to act from their conscience, then they realize, I've seen this in my own experience and with others, that then fear doesn't have to be the motivator. There are other ways of working. So I think the spiritual nurture has been the big contribution, knowing that that's going to have an impact all the way down the line.
Well, for me, this is my 28th year with the UN. And, sorry, since I started working on environmental sustainability. So all of my career has been focusing on that in protecting the one place that we all share, the one air that we all breathe, the one water that we all drink, and so on. I have been through so many intergovernmental processes. Started Agenda 21 and then the MDGs and now the SDGs, and now after that is coming the Summit of the Future and the new type of SDGs or whatever they are being called. So I have tried along with my colleagues in the UN, and I think the UN is an organization that is essential for humanity. And it keeps at least the dialogue going on. It keeps people focusing for the broader picture of living together in peace, in solidarity, and in a sustainable environment. The issue is that whatever we do, there is another side that is not positive, which is the greed that is increasing with the people. The problem is that every time you have something, you want something more. And even measure it at the level of individuals. When you have a few bucks, you go and buy a bicycle or a motorbike. Then when you have more, you upgrade to buying a car. When you have a car, you upgrade to an SUV and so on and so forth. So, the individual wants, but also the most dangerous part of it is the greed of nations, not of individuals. When there is, and all of the conflicts nowadays, across the globe are basically on natural resources.
Yeah.
The conflict is, who controls what. So, my hope is that my few lasting years at the UN before retirement, and as I have started this 8 years ago, introducing the ethical component of sustainability, the work with religious leaders and faith-based organizations. And I believe this is the crown of my career, working on such value system that drives the behavior of the people, the behavior of institutions and nations. I think the road is still long to achieve something, but I think it's a huge, important start that not only myself, but with all the faith leaders that I have met with and I have dealt with, and they're doing amazing work. And this is why we need to always come together and have a unified call for ethical approach to sustainability.
Would you like to take something from there? And
no, I agree. It's vitally important, and it's about values at the end of the day, and even beyond that, our deeper intention. And it's very hard for nations to move beyond just the intention of doing the best for their group of people.
Right.
And if there can come a point, and I believe it can, and I hope that things, it's almost like we have to be pushed into a corner to make a change. But to realize that the good or the benefit for me is the benefit for the whole, and vice versa. And of course, conversely, if I'm being harmed or threatened by the environmental crisis, so is the whole world. You can't separate it. And this is what religion teaches, what our faiths teach, that, what's done to one is done to the world, in effect. But somehow we've moved into a very narrow way of thinking. So it really needs, that wider vision that we are one human family.
Yeah.
And when you look at the wars that are happening of me and the other, it's all about other. But you're right, underneath it is the greed. It's about resources, about land, about oil, about whatever it is. So it's it needs brave leaders to speak out. Really does. But the inspiration comes from the grassroots.
Right.
What the grassroots is doing is incredible.
And what I believe that we should do is probably not empower religious leaders, because religious leaders are already empowered with the values they uphold. They know exactly our commitments and so on. What we need to harness or empower is the religious beliefs of the politicians. We're talking about 80% of the people believing in a faith or more. So each one of us is religious inside, but that is not, captured in the actions of the people, their inherent values of faith and ethics and so on, and their belief in the oneness and unity of creation and so on. That's what we need to awaken in the hearts of politicians who actually go to Sunday prayers or mosques or synagogues and so on. But they do pray to God to protect them and protect their families. Once they get out of those houses of worship, they go to negotiation rooms and they forget everything except the commitments to their economic development and so on. So this is what we need to do, to awaken the religious conscience of everybody, and then we can make a change.
It's interesting how you brought it back to the point where you were saying it's like very complimentary, I could observe. You were talking about alignment.
Yes.
And here you have some faith, but you're not being able to align that faith in your work.
Yeah.
So you are kind of segmenting it, like how you are segmented again by diversity, land and climate. Again, you are segmenting your faith and your profession and your profit and your family different.
Yeah. In the COP15 for biodiversity, which was 2 years before, the executive secretary, when she met the faith leaders, she actually said, you must read your scriptures and implement your scriptures